for this craft, we are making African necklaces from the Maasai tribe. So we will start out with a paper plate, scissors, and maybe a pencil if you want to mark a circle for a guide for cutting. So we're going to do one cut to get into the center, and then cut out a circle in your plate. And so your one cut creates the back of your necklace. So I may, just to give myself a guide for cutting on, draw how big of a circle, and you're gonna want to do a good chunk of the inside of the plate. If you can see, this fits around my neck, but it's just a little ways in from where your plate bends up there, because if you do a tiny little circle, it's gonna choke you and not fit around your neck very well. So I'm gonna do a circle like that, just as a guide for where I'm cutting. Doesn't have to be exact. My circle, it looks, after I colored it, it actually looks pretty good, but if you look close, you can see that it's definitely not quite perfectly circular, and that is completely fine. So our circle, and we're going to have one cut in to get to the circle. That's going to end up being the back of our necklace. So I'm going to cut in on my cut here, and then I'm going to turn and start cutting my circle out. And this is a bit of a tricky cut because you're turning the whole time, so this may take a minute just to cut out your circle. So you can see, cutting along. And let's see, that one, I might need to cut that a little more. Looks like it might be a little, that's a little tighter than I want it. So you may need to go back and cut around. Better to start a little small though, instead of too much. So I'm going to cut your necklace, your circle, as big as you want it. And then I'm going to choose how you want to decorate it. So if you watched the video about Tanzania, I showed pictures of necklaces and showed that some of the colors, all the colors, have significance to the tribe. So like white is purity, cleanliness, blue is friendship. So you can look back at that if you want. Otherwise, they use beads to make these necklaces, small beads, and they tend to be very bright colors. So we're going for fun patterns and bright colors. So I did mine, I was thinking how I would do it if I were doing it with small beads. Chose a pattern and colored the outside. So you're going to want to choose your pattern and work on the outside of your necklace first. If you want danglies, after you've colored it, if you have a hole punch, you can do that. If not, you might get a parent. Actually, please get a parent to help with this part, because you can just use a pencil to create your own hole, but this is a little tougher than just regular paper. So you're going to want, I think, a parent to help you with that hole part, and so that you don't rip it all the way through. So you're going to want to decide how many you want. I did 3, one in the center and one on each side, but you can do how many ever you want. And then you're going to take your yarn from your bag and cut it into, so if I'm just doing one, I'm going to decide how long I want my one string to be, and then I'm going to cut it even longer than that. because you're going to need to tie it into here, which is going to take a little of the string. And if you're doing the beads out of straws like I did, I took the yarn and wrapped it around the bottom straw and tied it to itself, so that needed a little extra as well. So cut your string as long as you want it, tie it to your necklace, and then figure out what you want to do for beads. So for mine, I took straws and cut them into my beads. So these are these big straws into those beads. So I decided how long I wanted them and took my scissors and decided about there and started cutting. If you cut these, they will fly all over the place. So if you point them at the ground, it'll kind of catch them a little better, and if you go a little slower, they won't fly quite as much. If there's nobody in the room that you're going to hurt and you want to, you can fling them, but then you have to go find them. So now I've got beads, so I'm going to choose which colors in which order, and I am going to string them onto my yarn. So these make a nice big hole so they're not too tricky. And then, like I mentioned, the bottom one that you do, you're going to want to, or this is how I did it if you have a different idea, but if you just tie a knot in the bottom, it's not going to hold this. So what I did is I took this last piece and wrapped it back up over the bead and tied it back onto the string. And just like if you're tying your shoelace, that first type of knot, I just did that twice. So just a double knot there, and then hold it pretty tight because yarn can slip if it's not pulled tight. So now I've got that, and that one, you can wiggle it around. That one was laying sideways and I wanted a little more down. So there we go, I've got my one strand like that, and I'm going to cut off this piece of yarn. And then you repeat that if you have more holes. So this would be the way that mine would go out. I would cut off that extra piece of yarn as well. Okay, so I would have decorated this and done my strands here and come up with an a Maasai tribal necklace that I wanted. Now I did mine in a pattern on the two sides and then one in the middle different, so you can play around with yours as well. But that is the necklace. Let's send me a picture of what you make. Thanks.